The wine glasses clinked lightly in the golden hue of the late afternoon sun. The Caldwell family reunion had settled into an easy rhythm, light laughter, old stories, and the hum of distant jazz filtering through the open patio doors. Ethan stood near the edge of the deck, suit jacket draped over his shoulder, eyes trained on the horizon beyond the family's lake house. Beside him stood his identical twin brother, Eric, casually dressed in worn jeans and a loose linen shirt, barefoot, as always. Despite their matching faces, they couldn't have been more different. "You're still the same," Eric murmured, nudging Ethan with his elbow. "Always looking like you're planning your next deposition." Ethan's lips twitched. The eye, closest he came to a smile these days. "And you're still barefoot and judging." Eric laughed, the sound low and warm. "Just observing, not judging." From the porch, Lily watched them with narrowed eyes. Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but it didn't matter. She saw the way Ethan leaned closer when Eric spoke, the comfort in his body language, the soft edge in his eyes she rarely witnessed anymore. When had her husband last looked at her like that? They came back inside together, twin shadows moving in sync. Eric brushed past Lily, offering her a wink. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan kissed her cheek out of habit, not affection, then excused himself to take a work call that never came. Lily watched him leave the room and turned to Eric. "You two ever get tired of being attached at the hip?" Eric's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "We're just close. Always have been." "Closer than most siblings I've seen," she said, pretending to sip her wine. "Sometimes it feels like you're the one I married." He chuckled softly, but didn't respond. Later that evening, after most of the guests had trickled out and the house had fallen quiet, Eric stood in his studio, his private sanctuary above the garage. Canvas after canvas lined the walls, filled with sweeping strokes and abstract shapes. But in the center of the room, hidden beneath a white sheet, stood a covered easel. He hesitated, then pulled the cloth away. It was Ethan, painted in soft tones, shirt half open, eyes filled with a strange, haunted longing. Eric studied it, his throat tightening. Every line, every shadow was etched with memory and desire. He didn't need to admit it aloud. The truth lived in the paint. He had loved Ethan his entire life, not as a brother should. He remembered the first time he noticed it. They were 16, sitting on the rooftop of their childhood home, talking about nothing and everything. Ethan had leaned over, his hand brushing Eric's, and for one reckless second, Eric had leaned in too far. Their lips had met, accidental, fleeting, but electric. Ethan had pulled back instantly, eyes wide with horror. "That didn't happen," he had said, voice trembling. "We don't talk about that. Ever." They never did. But Eric never forgot. A knock broke the silence. Lily stood at the door, hesitant. "Can I come in?" He quickly threw the sheet back over the painting. "Of course." She stepped inside, eyes scanning the room. "You're talented," she said. "All this emotion. It's beautiful." "Thank you," he said cautiously. She picked up a sketchbook from the table and began flipping through. "Go on. Do you always draw people you love?" Before he could answer, she paused on a page. Her breath caught. It was Ethan again. A pencil sketch, intimate and raw. His head tilted back, eyes half-lidded, mouth slightly parted, vulnerable. Worshipped. Eric reached for the book, but she closed it slowly, holding it close. "I should go," she said, her voice tight. As she left, Eric sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. He had tried to keep it hidden, buried beneath years of denial and distance. But love, the kind that claws at your ribs and steals, your breath always finds a way to surface. Downstairs, Ethan stood by the window, phone in hand, untouched. He looked up when Lily returned. She said nothing as she passed him, her expression unreadable. He turned back to the glass, staring at his reflection. For a moment, he thought he saw Eric there instead. Same face, different eyes. Eyes that knew him in a way no one else ever had. And for the first time in years, Ethan wondered what he was truly afraid of, the truth, or the part of him that wanted it to be real. The rain tapped gently against the tall windows of Eric's loft, casting blurred reflections across the hardwood floor. The evening was unusually quiet, the kind that begged for truth. Ethan sat on the edge of the sofa, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, his posture stiff with something unsaid. Across from him, Eric poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a tumbler and slid it across the table. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," Eric said, watching him. Ethan took the drink but didn't touch it. "Lily's been different." "Because she found the sketchbook?" "She hasn't said anything, but she looks at me like she's waiting for me to admit something I don't have the words for." He finally looked up, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Eric, what are we doing?" Eric didn't answer. He stood, walked to the large canvas by the window and flipped it around. Another portrait of Ethan, this one unfinished. His jaw clenched as he stared at it. "I've asked myself that every day since I was 16. Ethan exhaled, his voice quieter. "That night changed everything, didn't it?" Eric turned. "You said it didn't happen." "I lied." Silence swallowed the room. Outside, lightning laced the clouds, a brief burst of light that showed. Ethan's face twisted with guilt and longing. He stood, took a slow step forward. "All my life, I've followed the rules, done everything expected of me, married the right person, built the right life, but none of it feels like mine." Eric's heart pounded, and yet his voice was steady. "You're not here because of the rules. You're here because you want to break them." There was no more room for denial. Ethan crossed the space between them and stopped inches away. They breathed the same charged air. Eric's hand brushed Ethan's cheek, hesitant, trembling. Ethan didn't pull away. His eyes fluttered shut. The moment stretched until their lips met. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't confused. It was years of silence, of tension, of aching, restraint, now unspooled. Their hands explored familiar shapes like they were discovering them for the first time. When they finally parted, both stood still, breathless, ruined and reborn in the same instant. But reality seeped in like cold air. Ethan stepped back. "This can't happen again." Eric blinked. "You say that, but you came here." "It was a mistake." He picked up his jacket with shaking hands. "No," Eric said firmly. "Deny it all you want, but this wasn't about impulse. You've felt it too. You've just been afraid to name it." Ethan looked at him with an expression that bordered on anguish. "I can't destroy my marriage. I can't destroy you." "You already are," Eric whispered. Later, Ethan returned home to find Lily asleep on the couch, a forgotten movie flickering on the screen. He stood in the doorway for a moment, soaking in the domestic stillness, the illusion of normalcy. Then carefully he walked to her side and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She stirred. "You're late." "I got held up," he said. "Work." She sat up slowly, her eyes soft but probing. "Do you love me, Ethan?" The question landed like a weight between them. He forced a smile. "Of course I do." But something in his voice, too smooth, too practiced, made her pause. She leaned forward, searching his face for cracks in the veneer. She found plenty. She reached for his hand. "Then talk to me. Be honest. If something's wrong, we can fix it. But not if you shut me out." He squeezed her hand gently, then pulled away. "I'm just tired, Lily. It's nothing." She nodded, but her eyes didn't let go of him. Upstairs, Ethan stood in front of the mirror, staring into the eyes that weren't just his. They were Eric's, too, mirrored reflections of all the things he'd spent a lifetime running from. Behind those eyes lived a secret so deeply rooted, it refused to die quietly. Across the city, Eric sat in his studio, sketchbook open, drawing Ethan again. This time not as a fantasy, but as a ghost, half-formed, blurred at the edges, fading. "I don't want to be your secret," he whispered to the paper. "I want to be your choice." The pencil paused, the lines unfinished. Because deep down, he already knew the answer Ethan would never say out loud. The city pulsed under a gray morning haze as Lily's car idled across the street from Eric's building. She had followed Ethan there the night before, watched as he slipped inside under the cover of darkness. He hadn't seen her. She'd waited, heart pounding, lungs tightening until he re-emerged hours later, his shirt untucked, eyes vacant. It wasn't the look of a man guilty from an affair. It was something deeper, more disoriented, like a man who had broken a part of himself that couldn't be repaired. Now, she sat frozen in the driver's seat, the weight of silent truths pressing against her chest. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared at the building where her husband had disappeared into his twin brother's arms. That evening, Ethan came home early. The gesture was so out of character, Lily felt a flicker of suspicion instead of hope. He set down his briefcase, loosened his collar, and walked into the kitchen as if nothing was wrong. "You want a drink?" he asked, too casually. "I know," she said, voice soft but sharp. Ethan froze. "I followed you last night." He turned slowly. Their eyes met, and something fragile buckled between them. "Lily, you didn't sleep with another woman," she said, stepping closer. "That I could have handled. You betrayed me with him." He sat down heavily, unable to hold her gaze. It wasn't supposed to happen. "Then why did it?" Her voice trembled. "How long has this been going on?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't planned, I swear. It's just Eric and I, our connection has always been complicated." She laughed bitterly. "You think complicated justifies this? He's your brother, Ethan, and I'm your wife." "I know." "No, you don't. If you knew what this did to me, to us, you wouldn't have crossed that line." He stood, frustration mounting. "I've spent my whole life pretending to be someone else, for you, for our family, for expectations I didn't choose. Eric is the only person who sees the real me. Maybe that terrifies you, but it terrifies me more." She stared at him, her face unreadable. Then she turned and walked out. Across the city, Eric sat alone in his studio, listening to the recorded voice message he'd left Ethan hours earlier. "You'll never choose me. I know that now. I don't want to be the secret that keeps rotting inside you. I love you, but I love myself more. Goodbye." He deleted the file. Later that week, Lily sent Ethan a large envelope. Inside was Eric's sketchbook, the one filled with those quiet, intimate portraits. No note. Just the truth in lines and shadows. Ethan opened it at his desk at work, and by the time he reached the third page, his hands were trembling. His assistant saw the drawings when she walked in. She said nothing, but her eyes said everything. By lunch, the office was humming with quiet rumors. That night, Ethan returned to Eric's loft. Eric didn't open the door. He just stood behind it. "Why are you here?" "I needed to see you." "Did Lily leave you?" "No," Ethan said. "She's divorcing me." Silence. Eric opened the door. "I didn't come to ask you for anything," Ethan said. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Eric studied him, this man with his same face, same voice, but a soul that never quite matched. "You say you're sorry, but you still won't choose me." "I don't know how," Ethan whispered. "Then don't come back." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He left without looking back. Weeks passed. Lily moved into her sister's condo, her silence sharper than any words. Eric packed up his studio and relocated to Portland. A new city, a clean slate. He launched his first solo gallery show, Mirror of Desire. The centerpiece painting, a haunting piece titled Fracture, featured two identical men, their bodies nearly touching, faces turned away. Critics called it bold, tragic, fearless. Back in his empty apartment, Ethan scrolled through online coverage of the show. He stopped on a photo of Eric standing beside the painting. He looked older, freer, sadder. Ethan stared for a long time, then reached for his phone, but didn't call. He opened the sketchbook instead. Page after page of a version of himself that no longer existed. He closed it. In the stillness, he whispered, "I did love you." But only silence answered. Some loves never see the light. Some remain etched in shadows, waiting to be forgotten, or remembered by those brave enough to carry their weight.